it sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective, hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Corey, and playoff prediction master, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. It's time! The 2026 playoffs have arrived, and tomorrow, Saturday day, everything kicks off. The intensity is the biggest it's ever been. We have new challengers, new matchups, new rivalries sure to be created, and biggest of all, a new Stanley Cup champion will be crowned. Who wins? Who goes home? Today, we'll bring you our brackets for this year's playoffs, and we've changed up how we approached it compared to last year. Who do we think stands at the pinnacle of it at the end of it all? And don't forget, if you make a bracket to join our bracket league, the CAF League, look that up in the Leagues tab. CAF League, we have the Avalanche logo. Some other dorcas named their stuff the CAF, but we're CAF League with the Avalanche logo, password CAF. It costs you nothing to sign up, and eternal glory if you win. Do you think you know hockey better than Dom or I? Do you think our predictions are totally stupid and you're absolutely right? Well, get in there and prove it. We revisit our preseason predictions and let you know how absolutely correct we were compared to our headspaces at the start of the year. The Avs played some games that didn't mean much other than, breaking regular season records, setting new personal bests, securing some more trophies for players, but what me and you care about? Who do the Avalanche start in net for Game 1 against the Kings this Sunday? The Sharks, they may have fallen a bit short of their ultimate goal, but that doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom. We have one last in the tank section for you this week. The excitement meter just got cranked to 11. It's the 2026 Stanley Cup preview on the Captain Avalanche Fancast. And just in case you forgot, if you like what we're doing here as we reach the absolute apex of the season, while we watch the Avalanche go and secure their fourth Stanley Cup for Brent Burns, hopefully anyway, and we watch some of the fiercest battles we've seen, and probably this is arguably one of my most favorite playoffs starting this year. But if you like our analysis, you like listening to the silly stuff we have to say, and if you're a new listener checking in because you saw the 2026 Stanley Cup preview, tends to be one of our most popular episodes, well, we'd really appreciate you checking out some of our other stuff on Instagram. Follow us at Captain Avalanche Fancast, and of course, clicking follow here on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, follow on whatever other podcast platform you're using. We're currently sitting stagnant at 24 on Spotify, so it would mean the world to us if you could be number 25. That would be amazing before the end of the year. Otherwise, please tell a friend, tell a foe even, about the Captain Avalanche Fancast. But without further ado, Dom, I think you are just as pumped as I am, if not more so. Because you get the fun part of being an outsider perspective. You don't have to be stressed. You just get to enjoy.
That I do, Corey. I get to enjoy records being broken, a great finale, Jesus, words, to the Sharks season. I get to enjoy the playoffs now, though, and all the mayhem that comes, but everybody knows I'll be pulling for the Avalanche and heavily invested. My energy level might not sound equal to how high it truly is, as I'm still dealing with the lingering side effects as I recovered from the flu, but trust me, I am thrilled. My only thing on my agenda for tomorrow is hockey. It's back. It's playoffs. And thanks for calling me a playoff prediction master. I think that's better than I deserve, but we'll see if I'm on point this year.
Yes, you and I have both had some sickness battle throughout this season, and the timing has been utterly brutal, it seems, unfortunately. Dom, for those of you who don't know, Dom literally at the conclusion of our recording last week, because we're going a little later this week just to coincide with playoffs, literally at the conclusion, he texts me right after and he's like, I feel awful. Wakes up the next day and is just bedridden. So thankfully, the grace of the playoff schedule and the bracket schedule gave us a little bit more time and delay going into this episode. But we are certainly excited. And just due to scheduling, we're doing this late night style. That's right. We got some late night analysis for this hockey broadcast, but we're not going to dilly-dally anymore because we got a ton of things to get through. And first and foremost, we're going to kick it off right away because you don't want to wait for this. This is the shit you came here, well, to hear all about. And that's our playoff brackets. So, Dom, I think, first of all, let me lay out the ground rules for how Dom and I decided to do it this year. Last year, we had like a 3x3 grid criteria square list of trying to like break down and analyze every matchup as tightly as we could. And that took forever for every single matchup. And boy, oh boy, did we spend, I think, way longer than we should have. So this year, we simplified. We're going just offense, defense, goaltending. And this isn't written in our little table here, but we're going off vibes. Sometimes a vibe just overrides all feeling on some of these matchups. So without further ado, Dom, I think let's do it this way. Let's flip a coin. Heads will start in the West, tails will start in the East. And depending on where we start, or no matter where we start, you get to pick the matchup that we talk about first. Does that sound fair to you?
Yeah, let's do that. I'll call tails.
Let's get some randomness. Well, I mean, you don't need to call anything. I just said heads, it's West, tails, it's East. And then you get to pick the matchup we start with, regardless of where it starts.
Well, then I'm rooting for East. Let's build up to the West.
All right. Hold on. Flip a coin. It is heads. But we can swap back and forth if you would like.
No, let's stick in the West.
But you know what, Dom? I said heads, we start in the East. Tails, we start in the West. So let's start in the East, Dom. What matchup would you like
sounds good to me.
What matchup would you like to talk about first?
I'm just going to go right to it. The best story in the East. Give me the Buffalo Sabres versus the Boston Bruins. The Battle of the Bees.
Not the Bees! The Buffalo Sabres versus the Boston Bruins.
But we can be bees.
Against all expectations, and you will see this later when we get to our revisitation of our divisional rankings, I think Buffalo surprised everyone. If you are somebody out there who tried to say that Buffalo was going to make it this year, you're a fucking liar. No, you didn't. And you know what? The Buffalo Sabres social media team, they kept receipts. My God, did they keep receipts and shouted out every single hater that team ever had. So I have to commend them for that because that's genuinely really funny.
You saw the billboard too, right?
I did see the Ryan Whitney billboard. That shit was hilarious.
It was really hilarious. Also, side note, it's not just Buffalo nobody expected. Boston, after trading away Carlo and just trading away so many pieces,
their captain
looking like a team for a rebuild. Yeah, I literally said last year, if we can trade for Boston's pick, that would be a first round move I might try to make because that looks to be a really good pick next year. And, I'm glad the Sharks didn't trade with Boston. Not that there was actually any trade on the table, but it was just a theory to see what team did I think was going to be bad that could be a good pick to take off of them to try to get McKenna. And Boston was certainly not the right pick. So I don't think I had either of these teams making the playoffs, and they play each other. So, again, it's the East. I don't know anything, apparently.
And you want to know what's hilarious is Boston is still going to get a high first round pick because of Toronto. Like, Boston can make a deep ass run here and they're still going to get a high pick. That's the case for a couple of teams this year, which is just insane. That's some quality GMing, I must say, and some terrible GMing on the other part. But we're not talking about that right now. I am at my spot in the table for the Sabres and the Bruins. So let's go through it quickly so we're not spending too much time on each matchup. But I guess, how do you want to do it, Dom? Do you just want to say who we picked, then justify it, or justify then who we picked?
I would say who we picked, then justify, because I don't think for every single case I go through offense, defense, goaltending. Some of them are just going to be pure vibes for me.
Understood.
Also, home. The part of the vibes I think is home versus away, at least in this case of Buffalo versus Boston. My only question to you is, are we going to give our predictions for the number of games each series is going to go as well?
If the bracket asks it of us, we absolutely are going to do that. But Dom, since you picked this matchup first, who do you got? Who's winning?
Sabres in 5. Boston cannot win on the road. Yeah. Good for you, Boston. You made it here. Buffalo is a wagon. I will take Buffalo. I will happily jump on the Buffalo bandwagon for this playoffs. I'm really hoping that they aren't just a one and done. They don't. Honestly, it would be so disappointing if they break the playoff drought, get the top seed in the Atlantic just to fall flat on their faces against Boston.
Dumped first round.
Ugh. Yeah. And it's against Boston, no less. No way. I don't buy it. I think Buffalo's got this one locked down.
And I will say right now, I also picked Buffalo, but I picked Buffalo in 6, just for the sake of playing devil's advocate. The Bruins also have a good youth injection that they've had this year with players like Fraser Minton and God, who is their other kid that they have. His name is escaping me all of a sudden. But you know what I mean? And I mean, by all means, they have had better scoring than I think people anticipated them to. That being said, Buffalo scoring top to bottom, as well as scoring from their defense, led by Dahlin. Oh boy, that is tough for almost anybody to go up against, in my opinion. Where I do think Boston does hold the edge in this series is goaltending. However, I don't think UPL or Alex Lyon have been bad this year. In fact, they have been better than expected. They have, I think, really started to blossom into true goaltenders for this team. But Jeremy Swayman had a big bounce back year this year as compared to last year. He's shown that he can dial it in. I think Boston, can steal some games in that way. And I mean, playing in TD Garden can definitely be a tough ask for any team. So while I think Buffalo still, for the most part, cruises to a good victory here, I do think Boston gives them a bit more of a fight than a 5-1 shellacking.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I don't think these games are going to be, for the most part, beatdowns, but Boston has really struggled to play on the road, so I think Buffalo is going to go up 2-0 early.
Yes.
And I for sure would give Buffalo the edge in offense and defense. I think goaltending is actually a little bit closer. I think Buffalo, it's closer than you might think. I think better goaltending tandem actually goes to Buffalo.
Yes,
Swayman's
I could
advantage
agree
is
with
not that much better. And I would think statistically, I think if I look at this correctly, Luukkonen's stats are actually technically just slightly better than Swayman's anyway on save percentage and GAA. So less games, but nonetheless, I don't think Swayman's no Vasilevsky game breaker. So at least not this season. So yes. I think all strengths seem to favor Buffalo here.
Yeah, and I agree. Now, I will say, and this goes for every single matchup, we'll especially talk about it when we get to the Avalanche. By all means, this is the playoffs, and the most incredible, heartbreaking, shitty, amazing, wonderful thing about sports is that they are the most unpredictable things in the world. For the playoffs, all you have to do is get in, and from there, anything can happen. Now, does math and history tend to lean towards a victor one way or another that you would necessarily expect? Yes. And by all means, last year, the wild card spots got fucking destroyed. So, by all stretch of the imagination, can an upset happen in any of these series were you consider the underdog? Yes. And to me, this is definitely the most, I think, lopsided matchup in the East, I think, for all intents and purposes. But ultimately, anything can happen in any series. That's what makes it so fucking fun. But I just wanted to lay that preface out there for everyone. But Dom, I think we both know what matchup we want to talk about last in the first round here. So what I want to talk about next is the matchup that's going to burn down the state of Pennsylvania. And that is the classic rivalry between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Philadelphia, who has risen and fallen throughout this season, defied all odds. They got in over the Islanders. They got in over the Blue Jackets. They got in over the Capitals. The Flyers are here, and they get to play their rival, the team that Sidney Crosby hates the most. What a fucking treat. Anyway, Pittsburgh in 6.
This series I have going 7 right now.
Oh.
I have switched back and forth on who I have on this one because these two teams play a very different style.
Indeed.
Offense, I think you still got to favor Sidney Crosby and Gino. Defense, you probably give it to the experience once again of Pittsburgh, although it's a little closer. Goaltending, though, Vladar is the best goaltender in this series, in my opinion. So whether or not he can take the next step up,
the Penguins have
who would you have instead?
The Penguins have the ultimate wild card, Dom. They have Stuart all or nothing Skinner. You are either getting a sub 850 save percentage or a shutout. There is no in between. Stuart Skinner has been to 2 back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. How hilarious. And Shelovs hasn't been too bad. Also, I forgot to do this part. The Battle of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh. I forgot to do the dramatic intro there.
I liked it as the Battle of Philadelphia, honestly, or Philadelphia. The state of Philadelphia is going to burn down. That was funny.
Ever gonna hear that.
Alrighty, but listen, I do have Pittsburgh picked in 7 here. I think this is just dependent on game script and the way their season series went. Close games, 1-score games favor Philadelphia and their physicality. It might not be the Broad Street Bullies, but they are a much more bully-esque team in how they play with the physicality and grit compared to how Pittsburgh is playing. If games are won by 2 or more goals, it favors Pittsburgh. They have that offensive firepower. The talent on Philadelphia is real, and they're going to continue to be good for years to come, but they haven't fully matured. But one thing they do have is that physicality. So I think I'll have Pittsburgh picked, but in my heart, I might be rooting for Philadelphia while I watch these games just because of that aspect.
That's fair. And I mean, we're going to have some absolute, I think, barn burners in this series. I think we're going to have some real back and forth games. I think it's going to crack wide open, defense optional, just fucking shooting gallery. However, one, I think, disadvantage for Philadelphia is they were actually a team that was fiercely good in the shootout. If they could push it to extra time and they made it past that extra OT, they pretty much were a lock to win that shootout. They have some excellent shooters. The problem, that doesn't happen in the playoffs. You just keep playing until one team is done. And I agree. I just think the experience on this Pittsburgh team, along with some youth of their own that they've brought in, is going to help them immensely. Not only do you have highly experienced goaltenders, but you have the big 3 who have, won 3 Stanley Cups. Do I think Pittsburgh will make it far overall in this playoffs? No, I just don't think they have all the ingredients there. But I think Philadelphia will make it entertaining. But, just like you said, I just think there's some more growing to do. But this is definitely a good first step for them.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's a better series than we could have ever expected because
yeah.
nobody expected Philadelphia here. No. Neither of us expected Pittsburgh here. I think we both had these two teams finishing in one of the bottom spots in the Metro this year. And so just like our previous matchup, we have teams from the bottom of the division matching up in a series. It's going to be exciting. Anything can happen.
And I just want to preface to everybody, Dom and I did it fun style this year. We made our brackets before we came together. So we are learning about each other's picks for the very first time. So this is fun for us because there may be some disagreements here. And I wanted to try and encourage us to, maybe we'll change each other's minds. That's totally a valid thing. If that happens, it happens. I haven't fully submitted my bracket yet, but I wanted us to be able to make our own full choices here and then come together and have a discussion about it. But Dom, moving on to our next matchup, since, again, I assume we both have the same idea on who we want to talk about last. And if I'm wrong, correct me. But I think next we're talking about Carolina and the Senators. Would I be correct in that assumption?
You are correct in that assumption. And what you just said before reminded me of something I meant to preface.
Yes.
We reserve the right to change these picks up until the games start because some of them I have been switching back and forth all day. There is a certain second round matchup in particular in the Atlantic that I have waffled on back and forth all day nonstop. So even when we get there to the second round tonight, we still reserve the right to change these things, but this is our first attempt, if you will, or our initial thoughts.
I agree, but I will still post these, and you're free to flame us on Instagram all you want, but it's how I feel. It's how Dom feels. But Dom, I went first with Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. What do you think on Carolina and Ottawa? I feel like we may find our first disagreement here, so what do you think?
I think this series has the potential to be sneaky good.
I do too.
I think even though they're the wild card too, Ottawa is the better of the two wild card teams, the more dangerous of the teams, especially with Ullmark playing a bit better recently. I think this is the team that poses the most threat to Carolina, honestly. I think Carolina is slept on this year. And they're slept on every year, and I'm an idiot who keeps picking them to represent the East Conference for like the last 5 years in a row. And they at least make the conference final every time. I'd have to double check. I think I actually had like Tampa last year, who they crashed out right away. But you remember, Corey, before we were recording, I picked Carolina versus Dallas for like 3 straight years. I was convinced that was going to be the matchup. And I was also homerism rooting for Bernsey and when Pavelski was still around. So I'll acknowledge that factor. But point is I've been blindly believing in Carolina. And this year of all years, they actually are better statistically and they are less talked about. I have Carolina in 6, but don't get me wrong. It's either they lose to Ottawa in this first round series, or I think this is the year they get over the hump and actually make it to the Cup final. No in between.
That's funny because I agree with you partially, and I also picked Carolina in 6. But I also don't think they're going to make it this year. But we'll get to that point. And I mean, this is tough because I do think Carolina drives a good game. And I mean, underlyingly so. They're a really good offensive team. They've proved it over and over again. And just like people kept saying, if they get good goaltending, they can win games. And that's been proven. They've shown that they can win games when Ullmark steps up. But unfortunately, due to his own internal struggles, which I won't joke about, those are real. And I admire the courage that he has to continue to step out there. But I think feel that he is still dealing with them because he's talked about it. And I just don't think every night he's in the right headspace. So I worry about him from a human perspective that this pressure might be too great for him. And if he's not able to feel his best and perform during this series, then it's, I think, all but curtains for Ottawa. But if he is able to put himself in a good headspace, then I think Ottawa can pose a real threat to Carolina. I've heard some people compare Ottawa to a Florida Panthers style game, which obviously Carolina has struggled with in the past. However, just due to Carolina's consistency year after year, I have a very hard time picking against them. Not that I don't think Ottawa will go further any given year, but I just think this is a tough matchup for anybody in the East. Carolina just wins.
Oh God, why is my internet so bad today?
I know it's not
Carolina
me anymore. I'm wired in.
Yeah, I just need to get a wired in setup. But anyways, Carolina is the most dominant team by margin of victory over their division this year. 15 points to the second place team in Pittsburgh. The next closest is the Avalanche with a 9-point margin over Dallas. Yes, the Avs have more points on the year, but Carolina has very quietly dominated the Metro this season and is not getting enough attention for that. So I do think even if Ullmark puts up a great couple of games, that Carolina is going to win out across the duration of this series.
I will say, though, I meant to mention this, to Carolina's detriment, Brandon Bussey has not been great lately, and Frederick Anderson is always a toss-up on if he'll even be able to play enough games in the playoffs. Pyotr Kochetkov is also injured, I think, for the remainder of the season, so he's a non-factor here. So goaltending for both of these teams has the ability to absolutely sink them.
That is a very good point.
But all right. Oh, yeah, I forgot to do the dramatic thing. So I'll make up for it on this next one and our most anticipated, at least my most anticipated series in the East. The only one that I think is going 7 games, and that's the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Montreal Canadiens. Oh my God, Dom, I'm so fucking stoked for this series. I'm so excited.
Best series of the first round. It's going to be. I'm with you. It's going 7 games. It is a as coin flip of a series as you're going to get.
Now, I had originally selected Montreal because that is who I'm rooting for. That is what my heart says. But my head, and the more I've dove into it on the analytical side, which again doesn't mean everything, there's still always a chance, I've picked Tampa to win this series. And, you know, it's not that I don't think Montreal can do it, but I do think that there is still youth and development going on in their system that has led to imperfections. And I mean, by all means, Tampa has stumbled a bit down the stretch here, but I think Tampa has gotten good depth contributions the entire year. Tampa doesn't have as dynamic of a number one defenseman like Montreal does in Lane Hudson. However, they have the experienced stalwart in Victor Hedman. However, Tampa has the ultimate ace in this series, and that is Andrei Vasilevsky. And we've talked about this before, everyone. Playoff Vasilevsky is not the same as regular season Vasilevsky. Playoff Vasilevsky is a fucking demon. And this year, this Tampa team doesn't have to worry about the Florida Panthers. And this is a Tampa team that is much better than they've been since they've won the Cup, at least in my opinion, both offensively and defensively. So I will be interested to see how this series goes. I hope my bracket is wrong, and I hope Montreal wins. I like this Habs team a lot. Like I said, Cole Caulfield is my favorite player, not in an Avalanche uniform. But man, this is a very tough choice for me. But Dom, where are you at with this series?
Well, firstly, I'm not so sure of that statement. I think Macklin might be or become your favorite player, not in an Avalanche uniform.
But that's fair. But okay, outside of this podcast and the teams we discuss, Cole Caulfield is my favorite player.
Sorry. I had to do it. He's just too good, Macklin is. Funnily enough, though, I agree with you. I took Tampa way too far last year, and they They disappointed in
They
the
let
first
me
round.
down.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was against Florida, but they really let me down. And they've been a bit of a letdown recently. Montreal is playing their best hockey of the year, peaking at the right time. I know people say that. I'm with you. Tampa has Vasilevsky, the best single game breaker on either end of the ice. They also have the best offensive game breaker in Kucherov.
Yes.
The best line, though, has to go to Montreal.
Yes.
The better tandem for goaltending has to go to Montreal because Fowler has been awesome. Awesome in net for them. Dobish, bit more inconsistent, but who's the third one?
Montembeault.
Yeah. He has been forced out, yes, because of some inconsistent play, but just because of the quality of the play behind him. So it's not playoff Vasilevsky, but if you have to have a duo depth and this is going to be a long series, I'm going to take Montreal in 7. And oh man, it's a tough one because I want to take them further too, but I feel like there's a calculated risk there. But ironically, I probably would have started with Tampa. Last year, I would have been slam dunk picking Tampa in this same situation. So I think it's kind of funny. We swapped since you started with Montreal, picked Tampa, and I started with Tampa and picked Montreal.
And again, that does not mean I do not want Montreal to win this, but I think this Tampa team is dangerous. Some people agree with you, though. Some people have taken Montreal on the way. They like this team, but I'm trying to look at it from as many angles as I can. And again, vibes so badly wanted me to pick Montreal, but I just think there are too many holes right now that is going to prevent them, even if they win this series, that is going to prevent them from going further. Again, I think you put it best that in a few years, we are going to see Montreal and fucking San Jose running the East and the West, respectively. God, these teams are going to be so fucking good. But Montreal, just like Philadelphia, although they're a little bit further along, has more growing to do. But I agree in the fact that the series is a massive coin flip. It can go either way. These two teams have given us some exciting games this season. Montreal is so unbelievably fun to watch. I'm so looking forward to watching this on Sunday after the Avs play. So this will be great. But speaking of East and West, I think it is time for us to switch over to the other conference, the West. But Tom, who do you want to talk about first in the Western Conference? Which matchup do you want to take a look at?
I want to save the best for last. So I am going to get one out of the way now. The Edmonton Oilers versus the Anaheim Ducks is what we're going to start with.
All right. And you want to know what's funny is I think this is going to be I think we're going to have more disagreements in the West here. I was texting a friend and we pretty much agreed on the East, but the West is where we were a bit more divisive. So I think we will be the same, which is going to be fun. This is where I think some more unexpected things, some upsets will happen. So this will be entertaining. I want to talk first on the Utah Vegas series, so I will let you go ahead and start us off here on the Ducks and Edmonton. What do you got, Dom?
So this series is going to be close. These teams finished very close on the year.
Agreed.
I think both have been a little disappointing and underwhelming
Also agreed.
Recently. So this series might be close, but out of all of them, it's the least compelling to me. A month ago, I would have been slam dunk. Give me Anaheim in like 5, like hands down a month ago, but we're not living a month ago. So I do have the experience of the Edmonton Oilers and just McDavid being a game breaker. Give me the Oilers in 6 over the Anaheim Ducks.
All right. Now I agree with 90% of the things that you've said. And it is genuinely hard to bet against the experience of the Oilers. I mean, how can you? 2 Stanley Cup finals in a row. That being said, just as you said, both of these teams have really just kind of fucking sucked here down the stretch. They have not been impressive. And really, the whole top 3 of the Pacific Division were within, a point or 2 of each other. It was not competitive. As Connor McDavid himself said, it's been a pillow fight. I have picked the Anaheim Ducks to upset in 7 games. And the reason why is twofold, or more like 2.5-fold. Connor McDavid is obviously, on most nights, the best player in the world. I will acknowledge that fact. He is incredible. And I mean, he is one of the greatest, if not the greatest modern playoff player right now. I mean, the things he has done is incredible. Obviously, he won the Conn Smythe, 2 seasons ago. That's incredible on a losing team. Speaking of losing, though, that's what Edmonton has done a lot of. Not necessarily losing games, but losing players, losing depth. This team just continues to lose out more and more every year. And, their defense, it's bad this year. Their goaltending, it's bad this year. And that is, I think, one trump card that Anaheim holds is Lucas Dostal. He is the biggest factor for them in this series, in my opinion. If he can play like how I have seen him play, he could shut down a lot of the secondary scoring on Edmonton. No one can shut down McDavid. But if Anaheim can somehow find a way to overcome the rest, they can score those goals. Now, I agree. It's not the most compelling series, but I do think it'll be a tight one, just like you said. And I think it'll go the distance. Can I still see Edmonton ultimately pulling out of this? Yes. But for the sake of fun, I think Anaheim's going to take this series.
And fair enough. If we were doing our criteria, I don't think either of these teams has the vibes of a winning franchise now.
No, they do not.
Obviously, offense will go to the Oilers. You're right, though, about the injuries. Also,
the Oilers are missing Draisaitl, yes.
I was going to say, yeah, we don't know if he will play, how much he will play, what
if he's at 100%.
He will be at.
Yeah.
I don't think he will be at 100%. I think at most he'll reach 80%. I think he's at about 50 right now, if I had to venture a guess. So I don't think he's going to be as impactful as we'd like. However, they do have Bouchard to help them on offense. Defense, obviously, I would give credit to Anaheim of these two. And goaltending, I'm going to disagree with you. Skinner has been magic in the playoffs. And Connor Ingram has played far better than Lucas Dostal in the past 5 games. So I actually right now think if he's the starter in net, which I imagine he would be, I would kind of give the edge to Edmonton in goaltending, which is like the first time I've given them an edge in goaltending in years, since their goaltending is always so bad. So I would have expected to be like you and say, who is the best goaltender in this series? It's Dostal. Who's playing the best right now, though? I think there's a slight edge to Edmonton there, surprising as it may be.
I respect that, but I do disagree in the fact that I think Dostal has the ability to elevate higher than Ingram. I think Dostal has some latent potential in him. And again, this is just going off of, well, I was going to say it's going off of vibes, but it's also because I've seen him do this before. I think Dostal has more. And I think if he can really unlock it in this series, he can be an ace for Anaheim going forward. But we'll see how it goes in game 1 on, I think that one's not until Monday. Oy. But we'll talk about our next series here, and that's the Utah Mammoth versus the Vegas Golden Knights. And Dom, I picked Utah to win this series. And I picked them to do it in 6. And I honestly, their fans annoy the piss out of me, but I respect this Utah team. Mind you, I have not watched a lot of their hockey down the stretch, but man, does Utah play fucking hard. They are ornery. They are energetic. They are hardworking. They are scrappy. These are not just, descriptive buzzwords I'm using to describe this team that every analyst would. I genuinely mean it. And I think they have a nice balanced bit of scoring in their lineup. Vegas obviously is known for that as well. But I also think Utah has a bit of an edge in goaltending. Vegas is leaning on Carter Hart right now. I think Vejmelka has a great ability to also elevate. And Utah can keep games close. I really think I think Vegas is going to have their hands full with Utah in this series. Not to mention, I think Vegas has been fraudulent all year, just scraping by in terms of wins. Some people think the Torts bump is going to keep them going forward. I do not. Give me Utah in 6 games. I think Utah will win this.
Spoiler alert. I have Utah in the Western Conference Final.
I also have Utah in the Western Conference Final.
Oh, that's awesome. I have this series going 7, though. I don't think this is just a Torts bump. Having seen some of these Vegas games, they are actually playing the first and the second period now, not just counting on their third period heroics and late game heroics. They are seeming to get a bit healthier. So I think this Vegas team is also always a pain in the ass in the playoffs. I'm going to give them the credit of forcing game 7 with a win in game 6 in Utah. But Utah is going to bite back. Mammoth get their first playoff series victory in their first year. Loved it.
Yeah. So I'm excited because I'll get to talk about a prediction that I had later. Mind you, Utah annoys me.
Tending is definitely. Oh, I lost internet there. So sorry. I've just been jammering. What were you saying?
No. Don't let me finish here. I want you to kind of rewind here and share what you were sharing there in terms of Utah. Try again.
Sorry, everyone. I do think Utah's going to win their first ever playoff series in their first playoffs. It is exciting. I have Vegas stealing game 6 in Utah to force a game 7. Utah coming right back to do the same in game 7. I think this is going to go down to the wire. Vegas's top end scores have underwhelmed a bit. This season, Marner's not even a point per game player, believe it or not.
That is crazy.
So give me Utah. Actually, they might not statistically be better, but I like their flashes of offense. I like the grit they play with. I will give them the offensive edge, actually. And then with goaltending, I completely agree. Landslide in favor of Utah, personally.
Not to mention, if Utah was in the Pacific Division, they would be highly competitive in it. They are right there. If I check, I can't check the standings anymore. It's just playoffs. But I believe Utah ended with 92, 94 points. They were really good down the stretch.
Yeah, 92.
And
they
what did
kind of
Vegas have?
coasted in at the
93?
end once their spot. 95, I think.
So I mean,
for
yeah,
Vegas.
they're right there. They were better than fucking Edmonton and fucking Anaheim.
Oh, and this is geographically, this should be a rivalry. They should be in the same division. The only team in Nevada and the only team in Utah. So obviously conference alignment, what you gonna do? But I do hope we get to see this matchup more because I think they both play with a hard-nosed style. This is going to be a very physical series, and I cannot wait to watch it, especially when we both think Vegas is going to eventually fall, which is going to make it all the sweeter for me to watch.
I agree. Well, Dom, I do think we are on the same page for the quote-unquote most exciting series in the West. So correct me if I'm wrong, but under the assumption that we're thinking of the same series, I think it's time to talk about your Colorado Avalanche. Is that correct?
I would agree. Yes, that is correct.
Right.
But in one sense, the Colorado Avalanche versus the Los Angeles Kings is a very exciting in its own way because it's your Colorado Avalanche.
You're taking my thing. You're taking the Colorado Avalanche versus the LA Kings.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to do the lead-in so you could get all excited.
I know. I'm hyped.
Listen, I'm giving the Kings the respect of a single win in this series, and I'm going to say we're not going to have any sweeps because stranger things have happened, but God, I really think this is going to be a sweep.
I've also given the Kings a win, stealing a win here. And what I keep telling people is, the Kings are a great foil to the Avalanche. They play a incredibly defensive-minded game that gaps up in the neutral zone. It stifles offenses and slows the game down. They're great at blocking the middle of the ice where teams are trying to pass into those high-danger areas. They're good at turning it up and out in that regard. The problem is they have to execute that almost perfectly for 60 minutes, game after game. And that's just not possible for any team. And with all due respect, while they do have great players on this team, on the Kings team, players who can score, overall, they struggle to do so. Especially, at least in my mind, from their blue line, where Colorado's blue line not only defends well, but can also activate on the rush as well as on the forecheck and in-zone cycles. While the Avalanche are one of the best rush teams in the league and rush chances get kind of shut down in the playoffs, it's not the only tool that they have in their toolkit to generate offense. Colorado's good at the dump and chase game. They're good at going low to high. They're good at getting zone entries. Look at Marty Necas. He's a one-man zone entry machine. And so I don't want to, I obviously am never going to be openly disrespectful of an opponent. I have learned that lesson in the past. And that's why I say anything can happen in the playoffs. But I will say that I am confident going into this series against the Kings. I am much more relaxed going in than I was last year against Dallas. Now, of course, the Kings are going to go out there and they're going to compete hard. It's Kopitar's last season. They want to try and, put on a good performance for him and give it everything they have. But, I am confident in my Colorado Avalanche. I don't think that that is wrong to say.
You're the President's Trophy champions. You have the Rocket Richard. You have, what's it called for the best goaltending tandem again? What's the
Jennings,
award?
the William N. Jennings Trophy.
You have the Jennings. No, you should not feel bad about being confident that the best team in the league is going to beat the most fraudulent team in the league. However, LA knows how to stifle, like you said. They know how to force overtime. They suck at 3-on-3 overtime, but they're clearly really good at 5-on-5. I do think any games LA wins are going to be overtime winners, and they're going to be grinds of a game. I prediction, I think their one win is going to come in 2 or more overtimes.
Yes, that would feel like the case. So yeah, it'll be a fun, I think, series to enjoy here to kick off the playoffs. But yeah, I will leave it at that. But yes, I've picked the Avalanche to win it in 5 games, moving on to the second round. And I don't think, again, just trying to be respectful of the other team here. But I think let's move on to the more exciting matchup here. I don't take offense to, people thinking that this matchup is going to be pretty boring, because in some sense, it kind of is, because people have said this feels like the most lopsided matchup of the bunch, and I don't necessarily disagree with that assertion. But let's talk about this matchup in the West, the one that everyone, I think, has their eyes on, and that's the Dallas Stars versus the Minnesota Wild. Oh boy, Dom. You went first on Avs versus Kings. Is that correct?
Yes. This is all you. Take us away.
So I will break this down a bit more because this series, I think, will be close. Although what's interesting to me, and before I share who I pick, a lot of people are picking Minnesota, which surprises me a little bit. Because I think overall offensively, Dallas, even without Rope Hintz, wins that battle by a long shot. Boy, oh boy. Dallas, I think they said, although I think Dallas and Minnesota both are the only teams with multiple 40-goal scorers, which is just crazy. I didn't even know that Minnesota had that. I think Boldy and Kaprizov, if I had to venture a guess there. But both of these teams, by all means, this series is going 7, by the way. Both these teams have so many great qualities and abilities, but I do think Dallas holds the edge offensively as well as, in that center depth. I criticized their depth earlier in the year, but it's really started to step up here down this stretch run, and I've been quietly surprised by some of these young studs that they got on their roster. So there you go, Stars fans. There's your one. I'm being complimentary. But in terms of defense, shockingly, despite the fact that Dallas does have the number 2 defensive unit in the league in terms of goals allowed, I actually lean towards Minnesota in that regard. And that is for, I think, one obvious fucking reason, and that's Quinn Hughes. And that's Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber. I think Miro Heiskanen is a great number 1 defenseman. Do not get me wrong. Minnesota has 2 number 1 defensemen on their team. Multiple Olympians on their roster. 4 Nations face-off players. Obviously, so does Dallas. But I like the offensive play-driving ability of Minnesota's defense. Not only that, but, their defensive ability overall. I like it. And then in terms of goaltending, Jake Ottinger, by all accounts, has had a down year, sub 900. It has not been great. At times, Casey DeSmith has been the better goaltender between the two. Do I think they're going to start Casey DeSmith? No. No, I do not. Playoff Jake Ottinger is a strong goaltender. But he can be outdueled. He has been outdueled. He has been beaten. But he is a strong goaltender. But I do think in terms of tandem, I like the Gustafsson-Wallstedt combo more. Wallstedt especially has got some swagger, and I know Wallsted's the starter. They have confirmed this for tomorrow. So now Gustafsson is going to be juiced up. He's going to want to play better. And I mean, besides game 1, he played great for Sweden in the Olympics. But I have learned I just can't bet against this Dallas team. I know what they do. To see them going home in the first round, and Minnesota has gone home in the first round, 7, 8 times in a row? I'm not saying I don't think Minnesota can do this. I think they could. I can't bet against Dallas. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it with every fiber of my being. But I've seen it time and time again. I can't do it. Dallas takes this close series in 7. Sorry, Dom. I went on for a while there, but this is really the big one.
It is, and I was able to lose internet and reconnect in that time, so it all worked out. But Wallstedt being named the starter moves the needle closer for me personally. I think
which
right
direction?
Now, yes. Playoff Ottinger is great, but I think Wallstedt is the best goalie right now. I'll say it.
Amongst all
this moves
goalies?
the needle closer to Minnesota. Amongst all the goalies in this series, I would want Waltz.
Oh, in this series. I thought you meant amongst every goaltender. I was like, are you sure?
No. Specific in the confines of this series.
Okay.
So Wallstedt being named the starter moves the needle closer for me. It makes me consider taking Minnesota like so many have, but I'm with you. I can't bet against Dallas. I can't have them falling on their face in round 1. Minnesota hasn't won a series in God knows how long. I'm sure you have a better sense than I do. Every time they've made the first round, rarely in recent like decade, they haven't moved further. So it's one of those things where they got to prove it to me first. And Dallas hosts Game 7. This is the same thing.
Darn, that sucks. He lost the internet and then he lost it again. This is a rough night for his internet, everybody. It is just tragic. But yeah, I wish I could tell you what he was gonna say, what he was thinking, but I don't know. We lost you again, Dom.
What? Oh my God, I gotta figure this out. Where did you lose me?
Most important episode of the year, Dom, and you can't figure it out. I'm disappointed. We lost you at Dallas hosts Game 7.
Okay. Just like Dallas versus Colorado last year, Dallas hosts Game 7. I do think whoever hosts Game 7 is going to be at the advantage here. The other thing Dallas has is they might not have the most talented defense, but they have the most imposing one. It has been a recipe that has worked for playoff teams in the past that go on deep runs to be very tall and big defensively. And this is a hulking defensive core for Dallas. It is physical. We saw it in the games between Dallas and Colorado. They imposed their will at points and made their presence felt. I think that's going to be elevated in a playoff series. So I'm with you. Can't take Dallas to lose, fall flat on their face in a first round series, especially when Minnesota hasn't won a first round series in however many recent attempts, Corey. I'm not sure if you know, but it feels like it's been at least a decade since Minnesota won a first round series.
I said it's been like 7 to 9 times. I think they've actually lost more first round series than Toronto has, but people don't talk about it as much because obviously Toronto. And I mean, I wouldn't call this falling flat on your face for Dallas. It's just one of those things where it's a tough matchup. And I genuinely could still see Minnesota coming out on the other end of this. And for Dallas, I think it'd be less painful to lose in round 1 than it would to lose in another conference final, obviously. And I could see Minnesota coming out of this. I really could. And for all I know, Dallas is just going to fucking put belt to ass and whip Minnesota like they did a few years ago. Although I do fully think this is a better Minnesota team than we saw in the past. But the other quality that Dallas possesses is they won't ever fuck off. You can never get Dallas to go quietly. There were a few games last year where Colorado beat Dallas by multi-goal margins. It is just not easy to do. They are the most opportunistic team I have ever fucking seen. You can limit them to less than 10 fucking shots over 2 periods, and they will still find, if they're down by 2, they will find a way to get the 2 goals that they need. Not to mention, they have one of the best American goal scorers, Jason Robertson. They have noted playoff performer Mikko fucking Rantanen. They have best power play player Wyatt Johnston. Fuck, this Dallas Stars team is good, and I hate them for it. But yeah, I've learned not to fucking deny Dallas. And I wouldn't want either team to come out of this series. It is going to be a hard second round matchup regardless. People are like, some Avs fans are like, I'd rather have Minnesota win. It's like, yes and no. If they beat Dallas, clearly they're a good team. But sometimes it's also about matchups. So maybe Minnesota is just a better matchup for Colorado than Dallas would be. But we don't really know. We haven't played Minnesota in the playoffs in a long time. So not since 2013-14, Nathan McKinnon's rookie year, when the Minnesota Wild ruined the Colorado Avalanche miracle run. Thanks, Nino Niederreiter. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I'd just say this. Sure, Minnesota could win. I could see it. I don't think it will happen. Dallas is that team, like you said. I think Colorado fans, reasonably so, after the last 5 years, would take any team other than Dallas as an opponent in the second round, and I think that is justified. Again, Minnesota has to prove it to me that they can even get out of the first round in the first place, and in a sense, then the pressure would be off, so maybe they could be dangerous. I'll give that to you, but again, I think the most dangerous team in the Western Conference to the Avalanche is the Stars. And after that, it's actually Utah in my book.
Wow, we really are just on the same
pose the most threat to the
we really
Avalanche
are on the
just
same
based on
fucking
game style and how they played
wavelength
them.
here.
Okay, then if we're on the same wavelength, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Which series is better? Dallas versus Minnesota or Tampa versus Montreal?
I mean, for me, because Montreal is kind of my team in the East, Tampa versus Montreal, I think that's more fun for me, like as a viewer, because it doesn't necessarily affect my team right away. Whereas Dallas, Minnesota, like whoever comes out of that, that's who you're playing. And so you just hope that they wear each other down enough that you're able to then take that and use it to your advantage. So for me, I am personally more looking forward to Tampa Bay versus Montreal, but I'll be watching every game for every series regardless. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to everything. I think the Utah Vegas series is actually going to be more entertaining than people give it credit for. I'm actually really looking forward to the Pittsburgh series. The one that I'm kind of like on is the Canes and Sens. But again, I will be watching everything. I will be turning on my TV at 1 p.m. Central tomorrow to watch the Canes and the Sens.
I'm with you. Reframing my question, I would say the hardest one to pick, or closest series to pick, I would still come to the same answer as Tampa versus Montreal. I feel more confident in Dallas beating Minnesota than I feel in the Tampa-Montreal decision. I'm with you, though. Out of all the first-round series, I think if I had to pick a number 3, it's Utah versus Vegas. Number 4, probably the Battle of Pennsylvania. Actually, at number 5, I do think Ottawa's going to push Carolina. I am intrigued by that series. The 3 series that I have the least interest in are the sloppy play of Edmonton versus Anaheim. It's not least interest. I just think it's going to be a beatdown, Buffalo on Boston and Colorado on LA. So the most compelling series, though, I think Ottawa and Carolina might surprise us with some close games.
Yeah, exactly. But I think let's rapid fire through the end here. So going into the second round in the East, I have Buffalo and Tampa Bay. You would have Buffalo versus Montreal, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So who do you have coming out of that series and to the Eastern Conference Final?
Depends on the hour, honestly. Right now I have Buffalo in 7 over Montreal. This has changed more than any other pick in my bracket, back and forth. Who is going to win this second round series between Buffalo and Montreal? And that's even considering the fact if Tampa moves on, it feels easier for me to pick Buffalo. I don't know why. I can't explain it, and we don't have the time. But Montreal, I don't know. There's something about this team that both are very compelling for their own reasons. I'm giving Buffalo the edge, though.
Fun. I have picked Tampa to move on to the conference final this year. I think this Lightning team is showing really good flashes of depth, of all-around scoring, just a championship caliber team. I'm having a hard time. I was really kind of on that train back when they were really dominating, and I still admittedly kind of am. So give me Tampa over Buffalo. Do I think Buffalo could pull it out against Tampa? I actually do. I really think this Buffalo team has the chance to go far. So if I'm wrong in that regard, I wouldn't be too bummed. I think it'd be really fun to see Buffalo make a deep run, and I think they have the toolkit to do so. But I'm still going the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I'm glad we have some deference here as we go forward. So our second round both is the same. You have Carolina and Pittsburgh. And for me, I have Carolina once again advancing to the conference final. against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, right there with you. Carolina over Pittsburgh. Once again, going to the conference final. I just think they are an arm and a leg ahead of the Metropolitan Division this year. Ottawa poses the biggest threat to them, and I still believe that.
Yeah, and to be totally honest, I think regardless of who they face coming out of Pennsylvania here, even if it was the Flyers, I still think Carolina wins it. And admittedly, I think whoever comes out of the Carolina-Ottawa series is going to be the team that goes on to the Eastern Conference Final.
I'm right there with you. If Ottawa pulls off the upset, they're walking into the conference final.
Yes. All right. So before we get to Stanley Cup or conference finalists into Stanley Cup, let's go back over to the West here. So we both have, so you have Utah versus Edmonton. I have Utah versus the Ducks, but we've already given it away. We've both picked Utah to move on.
Yeah, I pick Utah to move on and give me Utah in like 5 over either of them.
Wow.
Honestly, I think Vegas is going to pose more trouble than either Edmonton or Anaheim can muster just because of the grit of Utah.
And I mean, for me, I think Utah holds the advantage in this bottom half of the bracket. Honestly, just because every other team in this lower half kind of sucks. To be really honest with you.
They hold the advantage of not being a team from the Pacific.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Exactly. I just don't believe in any of these specific teams.
Right there with you.
And what's funny is, just like you said, had it been a few months ago, slamming the Ducks all the way to the Western Conference Final. Easily. Now, can I also see Edmonton making a run to the Western Conference Final again? Unfortunately, I can, because they somehow, regardless of how lackadaisical of depth that they have, how shit their goaltending is, they somehow just seem to find their way there, and it is so incredibly frustrating and annoying, and I hate it. Again, I hate Connor McDavid much less. I acknowledge the amazing player that he is. I do not like the fucking Oilers, and somehow they seem to get worse every year and yet continue to go on to these fucking Stanley Cup finals where they just lose anyway. So I would like it if, personally, I would not mind if the Ducks made it far. I know, obviously, division rival there for you. You would probably not, but I wouldn't mind if the Ducks somehow made a run and made it a little further, but they would really have to work themselves out of this funk that they're in. But I mean, yeah, just of the 4 teams in the bottom half here, I think Utah is the best one out of them all. So, yes.
Yeah, we're in lockstep. I'd rather have the Oilers get than Anaheim, but for sure would rather have Anaheim over Vegas if Vegas came out of the first round. So I would have to be rooting for Anaheim to go on a run just because fuck the Vegas Golden Knights. But coming out of the Central, I know we both have the same matchup, and it's going to be a nail biter.
It always is. But I mean, to me, you have to beat them eventually. You have to overcome this team. And I mean, ultimately, fucking what pressure do you have? Everybody always expects you to lose anyway. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the Avs basically have 2 different looks on them. Oh, they're the President's Trophy winners. They're gonna lose anyway. President's Trophy winners don't win Stanley Cups. They don't make it far. Or it's like, well, they better go all the way. But I don't even think the Avalanche feel that pressure. I don't think they care. I really don't. I think they were like, okay, well, we want to win as much as possible so we can get home ice. So if Game 7 against Dallas comes around again, fuck that shit. We want it, and we want to take them down. I mean, fuck. If you're going to beat them, beat them. You have nothing left to lose at this point. Don't let this team continue to dictate how your playoffs go for the rest of time until the window closes. Fuck that shit. Either you have to beat them now. And I believe that they can. I have picked Colorado moving forward. And why would I be worried? In fact, we should be excited. We should always be excited when you get to play the Dallas Stars. Don't be afraid. Be excited because you know you have to overcome a strong opponent. It always makes me laugh every year where people are like, we need to fix playoff format. We need to fix playoff format. It's not fair that two conference final worthy teams are playing each other in the first round. With all due respect, everybody who makes it into the playoffs is a potential conference final team. There is always, whether it's 1 versus 8 or the current divisional system that we have, there is always going to be a matchup that feels like it shouldn't be a first round matchup. Think about how the Kings and Chicago played each other really early at one point during their Cup dynasty years. It doesn't make any sense that is not a conference final, but that's just what happens sometimes. I'm getting sidetracked though. I believe that this Colorado Avalanche team can beat this Dallas Stars team. I believe they could have done it last year. For all intents and purposes, this Colorado Avalanche team led the Dallas Stars almost the entire series, but they fell victim to luck. To Mikko Rantanen entering the zone and putting them away. They don't have that this year. It's a year later. It's old news at this point. You don't have that anymore. So now it's just two teams playing each other, bitter rivals. But I also think this Avalanche team is much more cohesive than it was last year. You brought in a lot of players at the deadline to try and really bolster yourself, but they hadn't really integrated into the system. This year, you did the right thing, and you brought in complementary pieces at the deadline. You brought in Nick Waugh to try and solidify that center depth. You brought in Brett Kulak to stabilize your blue line, and he had even longer. And then you bring in Nazem Kadri, who already knows this team. This feels good, and it should feel good. And to be totally honest, I would love to beat the Dallas Stars. I would love the opportunity to take them down. But ultimately, to be the best, you got to beat the best. So whoever comes out of it, we'll take them on. We have to. I really ranted there. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're all, my friend. This is your team. This is your time to rant. I'll keep mine shorter just so in the interest of time, but I've said it for weeks. It feels like that these two teams are on a collision course. There is daylight, though. I've been assuming this is going to be a collision course in round 2 and that it's going to be a 7-game series. I see the Avs doing it in 6. Honestly, I really could. This Avalanche team is better than the one last year. This Avalanche team was better than the Stars last year. This Avalanche team this year is better than the Stars this year. I really believe that. They played them super well in their final matchup in Dallas in that 2-0 victory. They overcame the size and physicality of that Dallas defense I mentioned. So I really think not only can they, but they should win this series. They are not going to have a better opportunity. They get to host this year. They get to take the initiative and control how that series goes. So it's on them to take advantage of every edge they have and finish the deal. And I think they can.
Yeah. And again, who knows if we'll even have to take on Dallas? We don't know. We'll speculate about it, but we don't know. But again, just like I said, ultimately, whoever comes out of it, that's who you have to take on, and that's who you have to give your absolute best effort to. It's going to be tough because both teams are a division rival. I mean, they would be no matter what, but just give it your fucking all. Let's go ahead and finish out the West here. Colorado versus Utah, which is what we both ended up with here in the West. It's going to be a tough matchup. It really will be. I think Utah really will play this Avs team very hard, like they have done every single matchup this year. But as we've seen, playoffs are a different animal. And I always like to reflect on the Avalanche and Jets series, where the Jets shut out the Avalanche the entire regular season that year. And it was Georgiev versus Hellebuck. And people thought there is no possible way that the Avalanche will be able to get around Hellebuck, especially with Georgiev backstopping them. The Avalanche figured it out, and they mollywopped a Jets team that had dominated them. Mind you, dominated them in the regular season. Playoffs are just different. And, credit to Utah. I think they will put up a good fight. But I just think Colorado there will, with the experience that everybody in that roster has, will be the better team ultimately and come out of it and go to the Cup final again.
I'm with you. I have Colorado going to the Stanley Cup final. I think any series, if Colorado does play Utah in this hypothetical, minimum of 6 games. Utah can play them close. Utah can frustrate them. Utah can take a couple games off of them. I think Utah presents the most difficult path for Colorado, and I think that they will live up to my expectations of giving Colorado a challenge. Not an insurmountable one, but this is not going to be a walk in the park for Colorado either. It's going to have them battle tested and ready to go once they reach the Cup final.
And what's funny is really any of the other 3 teams in the Pacific Division, if they were to come out of it and go to the Western Conference final, I'm actually much more confident against than the Utah Mammoth. So it'll be funny if that's how it comes out. And I mean, seldom do our brackets stay together. I don't think they have very often. There is one time that I've picked the most important part of the bracket right, and that was in 2022 when the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup. I did pick that correctly. So it's funny how it can all come to be. But let's get to their opponents. So if I recall correctly, we both have Carolina in the conference finals here. I have Carolina versus Tampa Bay. You would have Carolina versus Buffalo. Am I correct in my remembrance?
Yes, you are correct.
Who do you have winning this series, Dom?
You have me doubting myself.
I'm not trying to.
But I'm an idiot. No. This is part of my buildup. You do have me doubting myself. We talked about this before. You kind of convinced me about some concerns with Bussy recently. I looked into it while we were talking, and there is reason to be concerned. I have Carolina finally getting over the hump. I said it at the start. Either they lose to Ottawa, and Ottawa goes all the way to the conference final, or Carolina wins and finally runs the table all the way to the Stanley Cup final. They're going to run into the Avalanche in a buzzsaw, but Carolina is better this year than prior years, and they are slept on like crazy. They're going to be playing like an underdog every game, and they are better than that.
I do like this Carolina team, and I won't lie. It would be a fun Stanley Cup final. Every game that these two teams have played against each other this year has been super fun as well. But I have the 2022 rematch. The Tampa Bay Lightning will take on the Colorado Avalanche again. And ultimately, the Colorado Avalanche, again, will triumph because the Tampa Bay Lightning have Corey Perry, and we all know how that goes. But it's funny because I picked this last year, which was stupid because I stupidly doubted Florida for the second year in a row. I doubted them both years they won the Cup, which was a dumb fucking thing to do. So stupid me. But this Tampa team definitely feels better than the one that we saw last year. And again, nobody has to run through Florida. So I think it is free game for both Carolina and Tampa Bay to make it to the conference finals. But I just like this Tampa team. I like this Tampa team more. Vasilevsky, I think, has the edge there for sure. So yes, give me Colorado and Tampa in the Stanley Cup final. Colorado, Stanley Cup champions.
I didn't say it before, but I do have Colorado as the Stanley Cup champions. That no team has proven themselves to be better to me this season, and that's not just because we are an Avalanche fan cast. I'm with you. There is no Florida, so that's where I am ultimately going to open the door for Carolina to end the Cinderella run of Buffalo, if you can call it that. It feels like a Cinderella run after their long drought, but I'm with you. If you would have asked me at the Olympic break, I would probably have picked a rematch. That game we went to between Tampa and Colorado was a heck of a game when you and I were in attendance together a few months back. This Tampa team feels like it's regressed some from that peak a bit to me, and I have them losing in the first round. So obviously I can't have them in the final, but I think they are a very legitimate contender, and that Atlantic division is going to cause trouble. It's going to be the hardest to predict hardest for everyone to predict across the board, across all the potential matchups.
Yep. And ultimately, everybody, Dom and I are very likely not correct on a lot of fronts. I feel confident in picking Colorado going all the way, no matter what. I do stand behind that decision. For everything else, anything can happen. And that's why it's so fun. That's why we play the game. That's why we watch playoffs. So make sure, because this is coming out on the start of playoffs. I don't know why I said tomorrow. This is coming out on Saturday as playoffs kick off. So make sure your TVs are tuned. We have the Senators, Carolina, Dallas and Minnesota, and Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. Jesus. Pittsburgh and Philly, all kicking it off tomorrow. So it should be a good time. But go ahead, post your brackets, and don't forget, join our league, the CAF League, password CAF. Prove your hockey supremacy. Do it. Because if we win, we're going to laugh at all of you, because ha, ha, ha. So make sure to be there or be square. But Dom, we got to keep it moving. So we're going to now, first of all, that was very fun. I always enjoy doing that every year. But we're now going to look back and laugh at our preseason predictions. Dom, I would say in some fronts, we did okay. And in other fronts, mainly fronts named the Atlantic Division, we did not do so well. But Dom, would you like to go ahead and introduce this kind of section that you put together for us here and how it works?
Absolutely, Corey. So I went back to our first episode, and more accurately, each of our notes from our first episode, and pulled out our rankings 1 through 8 for each division, our preseason predictions. In the Atlantic, we picked, I think, 6 or 7 of the teams. I think it's 6 teams in the same spot, and we swapped only the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay. But because I care way too much about data and grading things and putting numbers on things, classic engineer move, I put a grading system for us, at least. You can't see it listening, but for each pick that we got right, i.e. we ranked the team in the correct spot where they finished the year, I highlighted them green. Any team off by 1, either they finished 1 spot better or 1 spot worse than we expected, have highlighted yellow. Off by 2 or 3 positions, I have highlighted orange, and off by 4 or more is highlighted red. Then I took the total of the number of the absolute value for the total number of spaces we missed by, and averaged those divided by only the teams that we did not get on the spot. So if we got 1 right, the total is divided by 7. If we got 3 right, the total is divided by 5 to calculate the average. So taking out the ones we got right, averaging how far off were we on the remaining items. That was way too much data and stuff, and you're not going to see any of the colors, but we can read the numbers for ourselves, and we can see very easily, Corey, that yes, in the Atlantic, we both only got 1 correct, despite having 6 answers that were exactly the same.
I would like to say I have more yellow here, and I was very close. And in all fairness, with the way that the Atlantic finished out from 1 through 3, I could have still been correct, and I almost was correct with how this all ended up shaping out. So frankly, I'm decently proud of that. We both ranked Buffalo at the bottom, so nobody expected that. But I had Tampa Bay at 1 and Montreal at 2. That is so unbelievably close, so I'm pretty happy with that. I also said that the Florida Panthers were probably going to end up outside the playoffs, and god damn it, I was right. They finished lower than I thought they were because I was afraid to place them lower when I thought they should have been. So ooga fucking booga.
Oh yeah. In total, Corey's picks were off by 20 for an average of 2.9. Mine was off by 26 because just by inverting Tampa and Florida, that made my score severely worse. 6 points worse to be exact. So you absolutely nailed this one here. You did much better than me, my friend. Even though we both put Buffalo at the bottom, who would have guessed? My mistake was putting Florida at the top. But yes, you're correct. You did a great job on Tampa, Montreal, and Ottawa, also off by only one spot.
Basically, for the scoring, you want a lower number. Am I correct? You would want a lower number in the total and a higher number in the average, right? Or a lower number in the average?
Lower number in both.
Lower number in both.
These are the prediction deltas. Yeah.
So, in case anybody's wondering how the actual standings shook out, in the Atlantic, it was from 1 to 8, Buffalo, Tampa, Montreal, Boston, Ottawa, Detroit, Florida, and Toronto. While I picked, in this order, Tampa, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Florida, Detroit, which Dom and I both got correct, Boston, and Buffalo. Obviously, Boston and Buffalo both exceeded expectations. Toronto absolutely blew fat ass cheeks this season. And Ottawa, Tampa, and Montreal were all about where I thought they were going to be. So go me.
Yeah, you did a great job, my friend. And my picks were exactly the same. I had just swapped Tampa Bay and Florida. So I had Florida at 1, Tampa at 5, but 2, 3, and 4 of Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa, and 6, 7, and 8 of Detroit, Boston, and Buffalo. We had exactly the same.
I don't know why you thought Tampa was going to be so bad. I really don't. Even now, I didn't understand it then. I don't understand it now.
I thought their window was closing or closed and the age was going to get them. I did not see Darren Radish coming. But to be fair, nobody did.
No. Okay. The Metropolitan Division. Dom, without giving much away, what were our scores between the two of us?
We tied.
Yes.
Like exactly tied on our scores. Off by a total of 20 points, an average of 4 off. Mostly that's being carried by New Jersey playing awful. And Pittsburgh and Philadelphia being well above expectations. But we both got correct that Carolina finished first, that the Islanders finished 6th. And yeah. My best prediction here, though, that's not reflected in any of these colors or final standings. I said Washington would miss the playoffs and that Ovechkin would retire quietly. The second half, thankfully, it seems like he's leaning towards playing another season. He's being mysterious and drawing out the drama like he does.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it does seem a lot more likely in the past week and a half or so that he will be playing another season. So still was correct about Washington missing the playoffs, though. So I can hang my hat on that one.
Yes, you certainly can. I unfortunately predicted Columbus correctly. I mean, Carolina's just always a shoo-in. I think that is such an easy pick every single year. Eventually they'll be usurped, but I was also close on Washington. I knew they would regress a bit, but you got it on the nose. I thought they'd be a little better. I also bought into the New York Rangers will bounce back this year when they absolutely did not. So that sucks. And obviously both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh came out of absolutely fucking nowhere. And then New Jersey, I do genuinely think had Jack Hughes not sustained the injuries that he did, this team on paper should be much better than they are. And then their defense once again got ravaged by injuries. So I just think the Devils are on an unlucky streak. And I think if somehow, some way they can put it all together, it might actually work. So we'll just see about that. But for those who are wondering, the final standings ended up being Carolina, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Washington, Columbus, New York, New Jersey, and the Rangers. Although with the rise of the Islanders, I do think there will be some changing in power here in the future. So it'll be exciting exciting to watch. Dom and I pretty much had everything the same. At number 1, both had Carolina. At number 2, we both had New Jersey. At number 3, I had Washington. He had Columbus. At number 4, I had New York. He correctly had Washington. At number 5, I had Columbus. He incorrectly had the Rangers. At number 6, we both had the Islanders. And at number 7 and 8, we both had Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, swapped, but, basically same diff.
Yeah, we'll call this one a draw. I think we both did equally as well or as poorly, right? In the Metro, I think it was nobody could predict that Pennsylvania was going to wake up and decide to play well this year after how poorly they played last year. But I'm with you. Looking ahead to next season, I might be picking the Islanders as my number 2 preseason in this division, honestly, because I just don't know if I can trust the Devils ever again.
I know they've hurt me too many times. The Central, I fucking crushed it in the Central. It actually, I think it's my best score amongst them all. So go me. The only team for me that really threw a monkey wrench, otherwise I was on the nose or within one for all of them, was the Winnipeg fucking Jets, who just tanked this year. I thought they'd regress. I didn't think they'd regress this hard.
Yeah, neither did I. I don't think anybody expected Winnipeg to fall off a cliff as much as they did. But had you put them in the correct spot, you would have had this perfect, because the rest of your teams were either on the nose or shifted by 1. So well done, my friend. You know your division, and we're very accurate with it. All of them were shifted down by 1 spot from where they actually finished. So very consistent in your rankings, and something that you should be proud of. This was a heck of a pick. You did very well across the West in general, and the Pacific will get there, but that one might technically be your best division.
Yeah, I mean, I got 3 on the nose here. We both got Chicago at number 8, unfortunately, although I think hopefully next year that will change. But unfortunately, the Central just has so many competitive teams that are on the rise, so many youth. It is the toughest division to be in. Everybody here, wants to be better. Nobody wants to be bad. So it is a tough one to call. I mean, right now, we know that the 2 most dominant teams are the Colorado Avalanche and Dallas Stars, who I accurately predicted at number 1 and number 2. Dom stupidly thought that Dallas would take first place in this division. Fuck you, Dom. I'm just kidding. I love you. I'd never say that. But of course, you for some reason thought St. Louis was going to be in 3rd. I stupidly thought Winnipeg was going to be in 3rd. I thought Minnesota was going to be better than they were. You for some reason thought they were going to be shit. I was pretty close on Utah for all intents and purposes, and St. Louis and Nashville just pretty much hot swap them up a little bit, and we're good to go. Man, you thought the Wild were going to be ass, bro. Like, holy shit.
I thought it was going to be very competitive, and somebody had to drop out for the Mammoth to make the playoffs. I just thought it would be the Wild. It turned out to be the Jets and the Blues. But I think my pick for the Blues was a year early. I think this team's going to be potentially spicy next year with Thomas. They showed some fight near the end of the season to go on a rally to finish ahead of Nashville on tiebreakers and be 5th in this division. So, don't be surprised if I maybe overrate St. Louis again next year. But you're right. I'm a stupid face for picking Dallas over Colorado. You can all hop in the comments and flame me for being stupid and an asshole for doing that to your beloved Avalanche.
But overall, the final standings were 1 through 8. Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, Utah, St. Louis, Nashville, Winnipeg, and Chicago. Dom, what were our scores on this one?
You were off by a total of 8 and an average of 1.6 for the 5 that you got incorrect. I was off by a total of 12, but an average of only 1.7 for the 7 I got incorrect. So again, the average is divided by or factoring in only the teams the way I calculated this that we weren't on the money, since obviously we addressed the ones we got correct. So I was looking for average delta where a delta was present. A true average, you would have actually averaged 1, and I would have averaged 1.5, I think, if I'm dividing by 8 in total.
So go me, everyone. Finally, the
So
Pacific.
it's kind of like a weighted average.
Yeah. Finally, the Pacific Division, in which I absolutely fucking crushed it in the top half. And me and Dom both, for some reason, thought Vancouver was not going to be the number 32 team in the league. What were we thinking? What were we doing? But no, me and Dom actually both got...
I don't know.
Me and Dom actually both got the top 3 in Vegas, Edmonton, and Anaheim in that order. So, and that's crazy considering how insane the Pacific was down the stretch. Not in terms of like actually competitive, but just like how close all the teams were. Go me, go you. But I accurately predicted that the Los Angeles Kings would be 4th in the Pacific, taking a wild card spot. And I was on the fucking nose. Go me. Tom thought Vancouver would be 4th. But in all fairness, that was before they lost Quinn Hughes, before we learned Elias Pettersson was just probably never going to be a 100-point player again, before Brock Besser regressed to the mean, before Thatcher Demko got injured again, before their team was led by Kiefer Sherwood in scoring, before they signed Evander Kane, before everything went wrong. So, you know what? I have to give us a little bit of grace there. But I had them in 5th. You had them in 4th. You had the Flames in 5th, or sorry, not the Flames, the Kings in 5th. You were much closer with the Sharks. I should have had more faith in them because I knew they were going to do better. I was just afraid to place them higher. I put the Flames a little higher, although they did go on a good run at the end there in 6th place, where really you got them right in 7th. We both thought Seattle would be 8th. They were a little better than that, and in fact were 6th. Had it not been for the fucking Calgary Flames and Vancouver Canucks just being dumpster fires of teams. But I feel like me and you both did really good in this division.
Certainly did. I know when we were talking in that first episode, I went back to confirm. I think we both originally had the order of Calgary, San Jose, and then Seattle. And then I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to be a homer and put the Sharks at 6. And it worked out for me. But you had the prediction that they were going to sniff the playoffs, and you were absolutely correct. I certainly was hating on the Kings. I still think that's valid as the most fraudulent team to make the playoffs. So I stupidly moved Vancouver ahead of them. Otherwise, I would have taken the edge in this division slightly from that swap of San Jose and Calgary. And if we're being honest, if we take Vancouver out of the mix, I think we were both right about the Kraken, and they showed just how ass they are this final month of the season. In total, we both were off by 8 with an average of 2 among the 4 teams we were incorrect. But my friend, you got all 4 playoff teams correct in the correct order, so I give you the edge in this division, especially with the extra prediction you had for the Sharks sniffing the playoffs. They more than sniffed. They were in it way longer than anyone could have expected. So congratulations once again to you. For all of you listening, when it comes to preseason predictions, Corey has got you better than I do, apparently.
Well, we'll see if
the numbers don't lie.
We'll see if we can improve next year. But Dom unfortunately spoiled some of my stuff, but I did have 6 preseason predictions here that I'm going to quickly revisit. I have them highlighted in green if I was spot on, yellow if I was close but not quite, and red if I was just 100 or completely off. Thankfully, I only have 1 red, and I actually have 3 green. I nailed it on 3 of these. So I had 3 NHL predictions and 3 Avalanche predictions. The NHL prediction, first of all, was that there will be new playoff teams, specifically the Ducks and the Mammoth. Well, everybody, both of those teams made it to the playoffs. So go me. I am very proud of myself. And not only that, you could take it a step further because there are other new playoff teams. Pittsburgh made it in the dance. Buffalo made it in the dance. Philadelphia made it in the dance. I think that's all the new ones that I need to tap there. Yeah. That all sounds correct to me.
Did Minnesota make it last year?
Yes, they did. and they lost in the first round. They played Vegas, remember?
Classic. Anyway, sorry. Vaguely. Maybe the late hours starting to get to my memory.
That's okay. My first Avalanche prediction, that was Nathan MacKinnon goes apeshit and scores 150 points on a revenge tour. Well, he didn't quite make it to 150, but in consolation, he did win the Rocket Richard Trophy and also ended the year with 127 points. Not too bad for the dog. So I can't complain too much. My second NHL prediction was the Panthers either lose in the finals or are eliminated in the first round. Really, in my heart of hearts, I did not think they were going to make the playoffs, but, I just thought it was too spicy. But I've learned I just got to share what my heart says, and you can believe me all you want or not believe me. You can think I'm full of shit, but I did not have a lot of faith in this Panthers team with the injuries that they sustained both to start the year and throughout the year. I just did not think they were going to get far. And, well, you can't lose in either the first round or the finals because they didn't make it at all. But that's a yellow prediction. We were close, but not quite there. My only red prediction was my second Avalanche prediction, and that's Cale Makar finally hits the 100-point plateau. Unfortunately, injuries kind of stifled him this year. He still finished the year with an impressive 79 points, nearly had 80. I mean, still a great year, had over 20 goals. Is Cale Makar, I do genuinely believe he will hit 100 points someday, and it'll be the year that I don't think that he will, but I'll keep hammering that button until he does. My absolutely on-the-nose prediction, as Dom said, is that the Sharks will sniff the playoffs, but they just will miss by a thin, narrow margin, and that was the case. I wanted them to do it, but they just couldn't quite push themselves to the level that they needed to down the stretch here. So, sad for the Sharks, but it is not all doom and gloom, and we'll get to that. And my final Avalanche prediction was the Avs will not be shut out by the Jets, and they were not. They scored on the Jets, both on Comrie and on Hellebuck on multiple occasions, also in Winnipeg. So, hooray, that did not happen. But I'm going to keep it moving here really quickly, unless, Dom, you have anything else you would like to add to that in terms of mine or your own predictions.
Other than the Ducks and the Mets, which I recall we agreed on once you said that it rang true with me, as with our predictions in the rankings of divisions. And what I mentioned previously about Washington missing the playoffs and Ovi's retirement, I hope to be wrong about the second half, so maybe that one's yellow. The only other prediction I have written down here, there might be more. I just need to go back and listen to my own episode, our own episode, that is. But how I was talking about how the young Sharks players, Misa, Dickinson, Cagnoni, and Thompson, particularly the D-men of Dickinson, Cagnoni, and Thompson, have the potential to push veterans out of the active lineup early in the season and result in either cuts or trades. Well, there was a trade. Jack Thompson got traded away to Toronto. But in a way, it proved to be sort of true, as Dickinson was a mainstay in the NHL lineup this year after his debut. And Nick Leddy did spend large chunks of the season in the AHL, so there was a veteran put out of the active lineup. Overall, though, maybe a little bit less movement from the young guys as I expected. I really hope to see, and I think we'll see, Cagnoni spending the whole season with the NHL team next year after he played well in his late call-ups here at the end of the season.
And you just reminded me that the Avalanche had a college signing that I did not put into this episode, but we will talk about him in the future. Michigan State Wolverine, Big Ten Player of the Year, one of the best offensive players in the NCAA. So great pickup by the Avalanche, but we are not going to get into that right now because we're going to talk about the question. And I also acknowledge that this episode is probably going to go long here. So everybody strap the fuck in because it's the most exciting time of the year and we got shit to talk about. So if you don't want to stay for like the extra 15 minutes that this episode is going to take, well, fuck you. You should stay. We're going to address the question that I think is on everybody's mind as an Avalanche fan, and that's, who is the Avalanche's starting goaltender? Before we get into that topic or get into the title of this section, Before we get into the topic that the title of this section suggests, there are a few things I want to recognize in case you somehow missed it. First, Marty Necas has hit his first 100-point season in his career. In his first full season with the Avalanche. It was hilarious because you could tell the team was trying to set him up against the Flames all night, and they were getting frustrated when it wasn't going in. But then they finally secured the point with a secondary assist on the empty netter. Next, Nathan MacKinnon secured the second Rocket Richard trophy in Avalanche history. The first and only other one being done by the legend Milan Hajduk all the way back in 2003. This also leads me to finally answering a viewer question we got way back when during the midst of the regular season. So, dear viewer, I know you know me. Thank you for your patience, but the time is nigh to answer this inquiry. This excellent question is in parts, so we'll answer mostly as such. We'll kind of combine some parts here. The question was, quote, I'll actually read it like this, quote, we are curious about empty net goal strategy. Online research says it's getting to be more popular. We assume analytics. So going into our part one here, the primary reason teams are pulling their goalie or goaltender is because they are trying to tie the game to force overtime. That way, even if you lose, you are still managing to get a point and improve your total in the standings. Just look at the LA Kings. Depending on the number of goals you are down by, either 1 or 2, I hardly ever see a team pull a goalie when the deficit is bigger than that, unless you're Patrick Waugh. Changes how long you give it. If you're down by only 1 goal, you usually pull with about a minute and a half to 2 minutes left. Sometimes 2 minutes and 30 seconds, depending upon the possession and how much time you think your team will need to get a goal 6-on-5. But the longer you give yourself, the more time you give the opposing team to hit your empty net as well. So it's a double-edged sword. When down by 2, you could pull your goalie with 3 minutes or more remaining if you choose to do so. In the playoffs, coaches will usually pull their goalie when they're down in the final minutes regardless of the deficit because you have nothing to lose and you have everything to gain. You have to win. But that's the general summary of the strategy. Now, let's get back to the question here. Do people look down on teams scoring bunches of empty net goals? Is it considered an inflated stat? Part 2 to your question, yes, 100%. Look no further than Nathan MacKinnon's Rocket win this year. But before that, I used to be one of those people who looked down upon empty netters. But it really is a silly thing to be mad about. But people do consider it a way to stat pad, but it is not always as easy to hit an open net as it looks. Firstly, because you are shorthanded at 6-on-5. The ice is more crowded than a typical power play, and the team trying to score the empty netter is typically much more desperate. But people this year will point to Cole Caulfield, who had an incredible season and is, as we said, my favorite player not wearing an Avs uniform. He scored 51 goals. None were empty netters. That is incredibly impressive, and I am fairly certain Cole Caulfield will win multiple Rockets by the time his career is said and done. And people point to the fact that of MacKinnon's 53 goals, 8 were empty netters, and that somehow makes him less worthy of winning it because none of Caulfield's were. 1, empty netters count on the scoreboard just the same. And 2, am I supposed to tell my team and players on it not to score? MacKinnon has the elite sense to know where to be in these situations, and it's also about trust. Coach Jared Bednar trusts MacKinnon and others to be out there in a 6-on-5 situation to put games away. Cole Caulfield doesn't have any empty net goals, not because he doesn't want to or he's passed up the opportunity, but because Habs head coach Martin St. Louis has not put Cole Caulfield on the ice in 6-on-5 situations. If he did, Cole Caulfield would likely have empty net goals. The Habs also still scored 15 empty net goals this season. As a Habs fan, would you not want them to do that? Nick Suzuki scored 3 empty net goals this year and is the first Hab to hit 100 points since Mats Naslund in 1985-1986. But because he scored those empty netters, does that cheapen the accomplishment? No, it doesn't. Alex Ovechkin has the most empty net goals of all time. Damn! and is, the leading goal scorer in NHL history. Does having those empty net goals cheapen the achievement? No. It is silly to expect players not to put a goal in the back of a net because they ultimately want to help their team win. It is funny when you see guys pass it back and forth for who is going to tuck it in because some players have their own qualms with it. Oh gosh, where was I? There it is. But someone has to tuck it in. Yes, it can pad a stat. I don't deny that. But if you took away every empty net goal or assist McKinnon has had, he still has well over 100 points. McDavid and Kucherov had plenty of empty net tucks and assists. And McDavid won the Art Ross. And any one of these three may win the Hart. They don't deserve it because of empty net goals. Macklin Celebrini broke the Sharks' single season point record, but had 5 empty net goals. So because he did that, he doesn't actually break it? I know it's like beating a dead horse at this point, but do you see how unbelievably fucking idiotic it sounds? Therefore, I hope, dear viewer, that finally addressed and answered your excellent question. Thank you for sending it in. And you also had mentioned the Avs are on their way to breaking the record. They unfortunately did not break the single season empty net goals record. They did score the most this year at 23, but the Tampa Bay Lightning hold the record from last season with 28. Also, final little notables here. Brock Nelson hit 1,000 career games, and it was finally celebrated last night in front of the home crowd. It was a nice ceremony and something absolutely worth celebrating. Did you know he was drafted straight out of high school? But Dom, any commentary on my empty net goals question answering and or rant?
Really quickly, that's a fun fact there. I did not know about Brock Nelson being drafted straight out of high school.
War Road High School.
But going back to what you were saying on the empty netters, I would like to add a big determining factor on when the net is pulled is dependent on game flow. Often when there is a stoppage in the offensive zone, that's why sometimes you'll see it pulled with a 1-goal lead or a 2-goal lead with like 2:43 remaining. Certainly depends on the coach, but if you can catch your opposing team in a racing, get your best guys out there, have position and be able to start in the offensive zone, that is the best opportunity for an empty netter. So puck position where puck is on the ice is huge. If you're getting an offensive zone faceoff, that often determines when you will pull the goalie as a coach and possibly call your time out. So that's just one thing I wanted to add for the timing of when empty netters start or you pull your goalie and the potential for empty netters come in. And then secondly, Corey, I would just want to foot stomp what you said about it doesn't lessen any accomplishments. Those empty net goals scored by McKinnon or McDavid, sometimes it's because they are the fastest person on the ice and they had to outrace someone to the puck and earn that. Many other times, how many people are throwing puck end to end on the ice and making it? The target is the same size. You're much further away. The lanes are more cluttered, as you stated, Corey. So it is no less of an achievement. One might argue it's a harder shot to make, and that's why you see many icings come from empty net attempts. I do recall that one time where there was an empty net attempt that just missed, and it bounced off the end boards, but McKinnon won the race just barely and was able to get an empty netter. That is still a well-earned goal that he put in full effort for and should count. So I'm with you, Corey. It does not lessen any of these achievements. And Cole Caulfield, though, He might have won the Rocket if he was out there in 6-on-5 situations. Those extra goals he could potentially get. He's a sniper out there. So I'm with you. He might get more than one of those in the coming years. And I don't want to take us too far off there, but I'm with you. And you gave a great case and explanation for examples of why empty net goals should not lessen any achievements.
Exactly. Thank you, Dom. And again, I will fully admit that I was definitely one of those people who, poo-pooed on empty net goals, especially because Nikita Kucherov scored many of them, and I always want Nathan McKinnon to be better than Nikita Kucherov. But yeah, that's just where I'm at right now. And I believe that I will keep that opinion. That's why I listen to a lot of different hockey opinions. It always helps educate me and sometimes change my opinion as well. And that's what we should always be open to, is having our minds changed in a positive way through, education, not through brainwashing, but we will not get into that. But let's jump into, finally, the Lumberyard secured the William M. Jennings Trophy. What is that, you ask? Well, if you missed what we said earlier, it is the trophy awarded to the goalie or goalie tandem who has allowed the fewest goals against during the season. In a way, this recognizes both Wedgwood and Blackwood themselves for their performances this year, but also the Avalanche as a team, because they do not attain that without spectacular defense from the guys in front of the attendees, and that was clearly demonstrated with the Avalanche having the best defense all year round as well as the best PK. And people still say the Avalanche goaltending is, quote, a concern. Which leads us into the all-important question, who starts game one against the Kings on Sunday? I think it is Scott Wedgwood, full stop. But I'm going to make a case for each goaltender and why it can work or not. And also tell you a bit of what Jared Bednar said. What Jared Bednar had indicated was that he planned to continue to use the 1A, 1B system for the goalies, but how I think it'll function is more like the 2022 run, where the Avalanche could not have won without both of their goaltenders. The run starts with Kemper, who injures his eye, and Francouz has to step in with the two tendies splitting the series to win in 4 in round 1. In round 2, Kemper plays all 6 games, and the Avs take it. In Series 3, Kemper starts Game 1, but is continuing to have eye troubles, leading to Pavel Francouz helping complete the series sweep to send the Avs to the final. Something to keep in mind is that Kemper was healthy at the end of that series against Edmonton, but Francouz already had seen the net the whole way through, and it wouldn't have been right to take him out. But he was also shaky in Game 4, so when it came down to it, Kemper got the net for the finals. All this is an anecdote to say, you never know when you'll need both goalies. You want to be able to rely on both. With the Avs, you can. All the Blackwood haters genuinely need to fuck off. Every goalie has rough stretches, a rough stretch. Even the best in the big 3 Russians. If you don't know who the big 3 Russians are, it is Vasilevsky, Sorokin, and Shesterkin. Need I say more? It happens. Scott Wedgwood has had rough games this season too, especially in the Nordiques uniform. 85% of the time when either goalie had a bad game, it was because the team in front of them hung them out to dry. But both have proven over and over they can steal a game the Avalanche probably shouldn't have won, make unreal saves, and support each other. That's what we need to do as well. Support whoever is in net, because we are not winning a cup if we boo attendee. Anyone who's even close to implying that Blackwood is becoming the new Georgiev clearly does not remember the atrocities and war crimes that Georgiev committed this season that drove him out of the NHL. But regardless,
Can I jump in here as well?
Please.
As the Sharks fan who experienced both and gave you Blackwood, I am offended by anybody who compares the two. We took Georgiev off of your hands and relieved your burden and gave you a legitimate playoff goaltender in Blackwood. I will not accept this slander. Corey might be a little nicer than I will be about this because the two are not even in the same league, literally. Sorry, I needed to rant a little there. I still have some trauma, but please continue.
Exactly. But let's first talk about Scott Wedgwood. Where the fuck am I? Thank you, Dom. Your likely starter. Scott Wedgwood is putting together a special season for someone who has been viewed as and thrust into the role of a career backup. He finished the year with the best save percentage amongst goaltenders, 921, as well as the best goals against average, 2.02. But as the hockey guy says, and I tend to agree, these are team stats. Yes, the goaltenders are a part of the team, but the Avalanche are the best defense all year. So let's do something we haven't done enough of this year and dive into some advanced numbers. These advanced numbers give a better look overall at a goalie performance as an individual. The first and arguably most important being goals saved above expected. Basically, how many goals did a goalie prevent that should have otherwise absolutely been a goal? Scott Wedgwood sits 5th on this list behind the names that you would expect, but stands well at 23.1 goals saved above expected. And amongst goalies with 20 or more games played, has the third best goals saved above expected per 60 at 0.544. Here's something really remarkable. Scott Wedgwood's saves on unblocked shots, i.e. shots the rest of the team does not get in the way of, is 963, which is better than his expected save percentage of 953. He is outperforming the math. Wedgwood plays an incredibly simple style of goaltending. It isn't flashy, but it's effective because he studies the game so well. He makes sure he is as prepared as he can be for any matchup and understands the other team shooters on a deep level. He is aged like a fine wine, and that brings incredible experience. He plays confidently, and that is reflected by the style of play in the Avs around him. He can, will, and has bailed out his team many times. However, he does have some drawbacks. He is weak in one-on-one situations at times, but thankfully, there is no shootout in the playoffs. But there are breakaways. Another problem, and arguably the biggest, is experience. Despite being in the league for 10 years now, Wedgwood has only ever played in 3.5 playoff games, and the numbers aren't exactly glowing in that time. Taking a look here at his 3 starts with Dallas, although I don't know if they were even starts or if he just came in. He played 3 games technically in 2022-23 for Dallas. He had an .862 save percentage, a 2.28 goals against, and a minus goals save above average. So it's not great, to be totally honest. However, it looks like in those games, he only faced 29 shots and only allowed 4 goals against. So really just saying these numbers, I don't think tells the full story here. And when he had to come in to finish up a game that we were getting blown out in last year against Dallas, he did make 8 for 8. But I do think, actually, I might have something to say about it. But looking through more of his numbers, which I won't bog you down with, it is genuinely hard to find a weakness for him this year. According to NHL Edge, all of his metrics are absolutely crushing the average. He is quite literally the best goalie at mid and long range. The only knock is when shit gets hairy and his high danger save percentage is not top 10, but it is still well above average. I truly, despite experience, don't see a reason at this point after stepping up all season that Wedgwood can't elevate now. I think the Avs should start Wedgwood and see how it goes. If, for whatever reason, something goes wrong, well, that's all right, because the Avs have a second ace up their sleeve in Mackenzie Blackwood. Blackwood has had some up and down moments this year, but I would truly attribute that more to injury than to him purposely being fully out of sorts. He has explosiveness in the net and can make incredibly athletic and impossible saves. He always looks very cool and calm regardless of the situation. He proved last year in an incredibly tough series against Dallas that he can elevate and outduel some of the best playoff goalies on a given night. He ended the year with a .904 save percentage and a 2.51 goals against. That is by no means poor, considering the league average is .896, well below 900, and still has a positive goal save above expected at 8.3. I think overall that Blackwood still had an excellent year. There truly were just some off nights that sank a save percentage and other metrics that were utterly fantastic through the first half of the year. But the Avs as a team stumbled when injuries to key players hit, not just Blackwood. Plus, I think he has done plenty to prove that he is a quality starting goaltender. And if you don't believe that, I don't know what else to tell you. According to NHL Edge, he is above average in all metrics, minus long-range shots where he is a .966 versus a .968, if you would like to split hairs. He also only allowed 4 more goals against than Wedgwood at 90 versus Wedgwood at 86. All in all, I feel confident in either Avs goaltender starting, and I am not just saying that because I am a homer. I say it because I believe it. But don't just take my word for it. And Dom's already said a little bit of his piece, but Dom, what do you think?
I think Wedgstad has been the surprise of the season, and he's having a career year. Give him the start, like you said, but you're choosing embarrassment of riches. Most teams wish to have the ability to choose like that and have the degree of confidence in either. I think to keep it on the shorter side, Blackwood is the more talented goalie. Wedgwood is the working man's goalie. He goes out there and is effort based. He is studying. He is preparing. He has to work harder. No, he doesn't have the raw talent to make these crazy split, flashy saves, but he also doesn't need to because he puts himself into good position. Also, I thought it was interesting when you talked about his goals saved above expected when they were unblocked save percentage of 963 with an expected of 953. Totally unrelated to this, but perhaps it creates an argument for the coaching styles of whether or not you should block shots or get the hell out of the way so goalies can see. For a positional goaltender like Wedgwood, who's very good at knowing where to be and squaring up, apparently it get out of his way, Avalanche, and the Avalanche don't block a ton of shots. I feel like that came up earlier. If not, it was mentioned by THG, and it's a valid stat, and that's because they don't need to with Wedgwood and net. So you ask me, I start Wedgstad, but also Blackwood is probably the more raw, talented goalie and can certainly be depended upon. Him starting on the bench when he is called upon might just give him a fire in his belly as well, make him play even better.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Dom. So thank you. And thank you for your patience, Dom. This is definitely a late night. We are burning the midnight oil. I can tell you're running out of gas. So hopefully this can juice you back up. Dom, it is time for your final in the tank of the year. It has been a roller coaster of a ride for this young Sharks team. There were some absolute highs and unfortunately some lows, but this Sharks team is no longer number 32, and they are poised to take a step in years to come to be that competitive team and eventually, once again, turn into that absolute Western juggernaut who I think is poised to go up against those Eastern youth teams that will also be juggernauts and compete for Stanley Cups in the future. And hopefully we once again get the privilege of seeing our two teams play each other, youth versus experience, at that point. But Dom, I know you have some news, you have some superlatives. So for the last time this year, it's time for In the Tank with Dom.
Well, thanks, Corey. Yes, I'm not going to go too much.
Also, I'm going to go get water. I need more water.
I'm out. The season's done. Yes, everybody drink your water. But the Sharks had many opportunities. They held a playoff spot at multiple points. They were thoroughly in the thick of the playoff hunt right into April, well beyond expectations. They just couldn't seize it and hold on to it, even when they had the games in hand advantage a month ago and were holding that spot. It is what it is, though. This is a young team learning, and again, they far outperformed expectations, and the blocks are there. You can see the core starting to form around Macklin Celebrini, who, as Corey mentioned, broke the Sharks' single-season record for points in a season. He finishes with 45 goals and 115 total points. As a teenager, he is 19. He did that in one season, breaking Jumbo Joe Thornton's record, the best player to ever don the teal in San Jose. And we're looking forward to many years to come. I've heard rumors of him being resetting the market, breaking the market for a second contract for a young player at as much, if not more than $20 million per year. Whatever it is, it'll be worth it. But I can't wait for next year. I am thoroughly excited after seeing this year, after seeing some progress from other players. So without further ado, I will there will be one further ado, and that is the Sharks signed Denver University defenseman, first team All-American and Hobey Baker finalist, Eric Polkamp, the defenseman from Denver. Like I said, the champion Denver University Pioneers for the NCAA. They signed Polkamp to his 2-year entry-level contract to start next year. So with the large number of free agents on the defensive side that I've talked about in prior episodes, I would not surprise me to see Paul Camp on the starting roster next year potentially, or at a minimum playing in the AHL, but he could very easily crack into the NHL roster. But now, without further ado, I am drum rolling here. Maybe if Corey's back, he'll add a drum roll in post. Time for the San Jose Sharks end of season superlatives. And no surprise here, your MVP has to be Macklin Celebrini. He's a superstar in the making. I think he's worthy of the heart. If you're talking about who means the most to their team, sure, the Sharks didn't make the playoffs. He had 115 total points and was the best single season in Sharks history. How does that not mean the most to his team, his franchise, the most valuable player? Especially when we talked about it at points, Corey and I, but the next two players on the Sharks, the next two closest scorers, Will Smith at 59 points, Alex Wenberg at 55. That's a combined total of 114. So he outscored the number 2 and 3 players combined. Give him the heart. He probably won't get it, but he certainly deserves it. And he'll probably get it next year because it looks like sky's the limit, if that. And it's only going to go up from there. Since I don't want to give Macklin every award, I'm going to give the most improved award to Will Smith. 24 goals and 59 points in 69 games this season, up from 18 goals and 45 points in 74 games played last year. He and Macklin combined on a bunch together, and their duo has only elevated. They both make each other better. And I do think that Will Smith will be able to crack into being that point per game player next season. For the Rookie of the Year award, this was tough. There are 3 rookies to consider for the Sharks this year. You have Igor Chernyshov, Michael Misa, and Sam Dickinson. And so let me outline their cases for you. Chernyshov had 9 goals and 19 points in 28 games with the NHL team. Michael Misa had 9 goals and 21 points in 40 games for Team Teal. And Sam Dickinson, as a defenseman, had 1 goal and 14 points with a surprising only a -5 on plus minus, which for a defenseman I thought was quite impressive as a rookie. In 72 games played, he played by far the most of the rookies, more than the other 2 combined. But personally, I'm going to give it to Igor Chernyshov. Michael Misa missed some time with injury, and he really, really played well down the stretch. But I loved what I saw from Igor Chernyshov, and I can't wait to see him play a full season. I don't know if that means he would. I think he might possibly still count as a rookie next year. I don't remember the exact rule on that at this hour. But in any case, I thought he was the most electric and consistent in his games, even though he finished with fewer points than Misa. For underdog or surprise of the year, that has to go to Colin Graf. Look at this graph with a 20-goal season, 45 total points as an undrafted free agent who was determined to crack the starting roster out of training camp. He did well beyond that, well outperformed expectations, and cemented himself as the team's best penalty killer. He is a restricted free agent this offseason and due for a raise. I have no doubt that GM Mike Greer will find a way to make a deal that works with his agent because we need Colin Graf coming back for the long term. In their final game of the season, when the Sharks absolutely pummeled the Winnipeg Jets 6-1, Colin Graf was the oldest goal scorer on the ice at 23. So even he is our old guy, our old head, him and William Eklund both at 23. The future is so teal, y'all. That's one thing we learned this season. As far as defenseman or D-man of the year, I narrowed it down to 2 players of either Mario Ferraro or Dmitry Orlov. Mario's case was a career high in each of goals, points, and plus minus, finishing with 7 goals, 23 points, and only a -1 despite playing in all 82 games this season. Very, very impressive from Mario Ferraro. For Dmitry Orlov, his case is a little bit more simple. He had 3 goals and 37 points. That marked a career high in points at 37 to lead all Sharks defensemen on the year for offense. However, I've been hyping him up. It has to be Mario Ferraro. And what might be his last year, I'm going to name him as the Sharks defenseman of the year, setting all of those career highs and always bringing the right vibes to the tank as a leader on and off the ice.
What if I just...
And as we're starting to round out the superlatives... Oh, I was just going to run through them as fast as possible. I thought you were done. My bad. Do you want to jump in with anything?
No. Finish your superlatives, and then I'll jump in with what I want to say.
Alrighty. For best goalie moment of the year, I'm going to give it to shout out. I think our best goalie of the year, Alex Nedeljkovic, dropping the gloves versus Bobrovsky. The first goalie fight of the year. What a year when I can say that's the first goalie fight of the year. We got to enjoy 3 this regular season, but it all started when Bobrovsky charged down the ice at an angry Alex Nedeljkovic, who was battling it out in the corner after he was hit in the crease. We had a goalie fight, and it started with a man in white and teal that night he was wearing because it was in Florida. So shout out Ned for that being the best goalie moment. Best new tradition. This award has to go out to the one Revo, Mr. Ryan Reeves, for starting the tradition of being shirtless in the post-game interview as he specified was a rule. Not sure that they actually followed that. But bringing a custom shark tooth necklace to the team for player of the game. There was also later a bedazzled, it looked like a disco ball motorcycle helmet. Specifically, it looked like, what's it called? The little small motorcycles, like a Vespa. It looked like specifically like a Vespa helmet that was bedazzled that Mario in particular was seen wearing. But Ryan Reeves was a massive locker room presence, a leader. Even in the final game, despite finishing the season injured, everybody still had to take a hit from Revo before marching out of the tunnel and onto the ice. If his time is done, I hope he finds a wonderful job in the broadcast booth and certainly brought some new traditions to the tank that I hope are around for years to come. And last but not least, my favorite saying that I was saying on repeat this year, you all might have gotten sick of hearing me say it, but Regenda, he has an agenda and he's done it agenda. And I really hope we get to see more of Regenda doing it agenda next year. But if he is not with Team Teal, then I hope he gets a shot somewhere in the NHL and we can celebrate his accomplishments because he was certainly a fun watch throughout the year. But thank you, everyone. I figured rather than going too much into it, I wanted to highlight some of these superlatives, some fun moments to look back upon, and some of the better stats from the year. The future is so Teal, and this team, if the right moves are made in the offseason, I'm sure they will be, this team should be projected for the playoffs next year after the jump they made this season.
Very well said, Tom. And I will have to make sure to do some Avalanche superlatives. I'm going to steal your idea. I like it. But I just want to, first of all, put this out into the universe for future. MacLeod Celebrini is going to break that point record next year. And I don't think people are understanding just how special this kid is. First of all, the Sharks have been around for what? 36 years? They've been around since 90, correct? 1990?
35 years exactly this year.
So yeah, 35 years. And in 35 years, there were 2 players who had scored more than 100 points. Only one who had scored more than 110. And that was Jumbo Joe Thornton, a Hall of Famer. Jumbo Joe played a long time, was an incredible player. He only broke the 100-point plateau a single time. MacLeod Celebrini has come out in his sophomore season, and by all accounts, had he not been injured in season 1, he would have won the Calder. You can fight me on that. Lane Hudson is great. Celebrini would have won. MacLeod Celebrini is a special fucking player. He is going to terrorize everyone in this league for years to come. Sidney Crosby had 120 points in his second year. Connor McDavid only had 110. Celebrini is going to run the show. This kid is incredible. And I just think the talent that keeps coming into the league is just better and better. These kids are insane. The league is just a flashy show, and I frankly fucking love it. I'm glad we're not just chucking elbows anymore. I love what this is. I love the talent that's in this league. But to keep my statement short here, as I've already been waffling on, as Dom would say, I don't know if he's going to reset the market. Obviously, I expect his contract extension to be a high one. But if he has learned anything from Captain Canada, Sidney Crosby, it's that you do not win. Your team does not win if you take all the money. Not that he doesn't deserve it. Not that he hasn't earned it. Not that the cap isn't going up. But if MacLeod Celebrini has learned anything from Sidney Crosby, and I hope he has, it's that if you share the wealth, your team will succeed. And you can still get paid fucking well. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to do it. I think that's just people being speculative on the talent that he's shown this year. But, you know, I don't know shit. I'm poor. I'm not rich. So we'll just have to wait and see. Dom, if you don't have anything to add, I'll just keep
he's
going
certainly
along here.
worth it.
Yeah.
No, I'll jump in. He's certainly worth it, but I hope and I do think he understands that. He's a leader. He's going to be wearing the captaincy next year. I agree. He's going to break this stat again. You reminded me of a stat that I didn't say before and need to say. MacLeod Celebrini is one of only 2 teenagers in history to score at least 40 goals and 70 assists in a season. McDavid never did it. Crosby never did it. Only one. Only the great one has done that, other than MacLeod Celebrini, who hit 45 goals. The great one had 51 goals and 86 assists in the 1979-80 season, still stands as the best teenage season in history. But MacLeod Celebrini is the only one to surpass 40 goals and 70 assists in the, 47 years since. That's insane. This dude is going to wreck the game, take over the league. And what a blessing it is that he wears teal and we get to talk about him every week.
I do feel very lucky in that fact, because when the Avalanche, hopefully the dark days don't come. We're still making it. We're just like not as good as we used to be. We're still kicking around. We're still making it, but eventually we'll get to talk about Max and Celebrini a lot more than we already do. But at the end of the day, this is still always an Avalanche fan cast. For better or for worse, if the Avalanche are fucking bottom dwellers, we'll still love them no matter what, because that'll also mean tickets are cheap, so we can go and watch MacLeod Celebrini kick our ass fucking all day. So that'll be fun. But that's in the future.
It will be fun.
We're talking about now. So let's talk about now. And for me, I'm not going to do players of the week, but instead I chose to do, because I have an idea for Avs like players of the year, but we're going to do that at the end. I asked Dom, he said I should do that at the end. So I'm going to do that later. But I chose who can be heroes of the playoffs. In my mind, who can I think everybody can make a meaningful impact, but who do I think can be that guy who is a true difference maker, who can score that OT winner, who can score that desperately needed goal, who can break a tie, who can fucking get that power play goal, who can do something crazy, unexpected when you need it the most. At number 3, it's Parker Kelly, best 4th liner in the league, 20 goal scorer, absolute penalty killing demon, and Energizer Bunny out there. I love Parker Kelly. I will always love Parker Kelly. Number 2, Nazem Kadri. He's already done it, and it would not surprise me if he could do it again. And number 1 is Nathan MacKinnon. I think it is time for him to secure his first Conn Smythe trophy, and I know he can fucking do it. He, I think, has a mission this year, and boy, oh boy, if we do see the Stars again, I think it will be no mercy from his front. He wants that win. Honorable mention goes to Cale Makar, who had a down year last year during the playoffs, who after his recent injury stint coming back here, he looked fucking great. He had 3 assists in the game against Calgary and had the most absolutely dynamite feed across the ice to Parker Kelly for goal number 21 on the year against Seattle. I think Cale Makar is going to have a much better playoffs this year. And honorable mention also goes to Avalanche goaltending for reasons we've already discussed. But I mean, other guys can absolutely make an impact. Marty Necas, Brock Nelson, Gabriel Landeskog. Anybody can have an impact, and anybody can have an improved playoffs over last year. I think it's going to be a great time. I can't wait for Sunday. But finally, your fun fact this week, as we get to 2 hours and 30 minutes, is presented to you by Dom from the Tank. Dom, what is our fun fact?
Well, firstly, it's probably a little bit less than that because you and I like to chat before we start recording. So hopefully we didn't.
No, it's 2 hours and 30 minutes. That is what we're getting to at the clock.
Well, I hope and thank all of you that listen all the way through. Thanks for supporting us year round and listening to all we have to say through this regular season and giving us that support. It means more to us than you know. And my time in the tank might be done, but I'm still very excited that we get to keep coming back every week and talk about playoffs now. Just wanted to say this little bit before the fun fact, but your fun fact this week, and this is credit of an article written by Sean McIndoe of The Athletic I saw a couple weeks ago and started tracking it because at that point in time, the Mammoth were attempting to do something and only 5 games away from being the first team ever to do something. Prior to that, one team had ever managed to avoid the shootout completely in a season, and that was the 2020-2021 Oilers. But that was the COVID season and only 56 games long. It doesn't really count, and that season was so wonky and wacky. The playoff format was weird. We just got to take that one out with an asterisk. But what the Utah Mammoth this year did became the first team in the cap era to ever go through an entire 82-game season without ever having to have a single shootout. All games were decided in either regulation or in the 5 minutes of overtime. Utah was only past regulation 15 times at this point of the writing of this article. So they were consistently able to handle their business in regulation. So not only did the Mammoth make the playoffs, do we think they're going to go on a run, but they also set some records in their first season as a franchise as well.
You want to know what's hilarious is you were texting me because you were like, I'm going to do this for fun fact in case you were going to bring it up. And you're like, the Mammoth shootout thing. I genuinely had no fucking idea what you were talking about. I was like, the Mammoth shootout thing, what? And now that I've heard that, I'm just like, really? That's crazy. Because I know they had gone to OT. I did not know they were the only team in literally forever to go a full 82 games with no shootouts. That is genuinely really impressive. Credit to them for being able to get business done. So I'm actually really impressed by that stat. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is insane. And again, credit to the article. For this other tidbit, the prior longest run in a given season was 67 games by the 2018-19 Ottawa Senators before they had their first shootout. So breaking the record by a country mile and then finishing it out, holding it through to the entire season. Started tracking this potential a few weeks ago, but didn't want to jinx it. As many we're talking about because, you know, that's how hockey fans are. We're superstitious, all of us. But very impressive, very rare, especially this year with all of the OT and playoff and, shootout loser points given out in the West in particular. Very, very surprising and impressive how it went to that shootout, never into the overtime less often than most of their peers.
Yeah, I agree. Very interesting, very impressive. Well, everyone, this concludes your 2026 Stanley Cup preview. The clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, reach out to us on our socials or email, and we'll be happy to try and answer it. The best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and to share this podcast everywhere you can with everyone you can. I'm Captain Avalanche Corey.
And I'm Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every week. Thanks, everyone. And don't forget to join the Bracket Challenge. Link in the description of this episode, or go to nhl.com/bracket in league. Search the CAF League. Password is CAF. Submit your brackets before they close. We'll see you later. It's playoff time, baby.